So, it continues. Hello there! Welcome back to my annual AMA. This is part 3. You sent questions, I've got answers. Let's dive right in. Continue on with the silliness, taking your questions and answering them live before your very eyes. Juliana Freyer, with the Chloe icon from Life is Strange, asks, what would you say is the better question to ask in these? Personal questions, mostly. What's your favorite game? My favorite game of all time. It's a little hard to define, mostly because there are many games that have affected the way that I tell stories. I feel like the most foundational one, really, was Chrono Trigger. I played it a little bit on the Super Nintendo. I played it on the PlayStation, and I finally beat it years after. Because it's hard to beat RPGs when you don't speak English and you live in Mexico. It's a little hard to beat RPGs that way. But I beat it on the DS. The DS re-release is like the best re-release of that game. I like it. It's a time travel story, and it focuses mostly on characters, and that's what makes it really effective for me. What song provokes the most feeling in you? That is 1,000 Years by Christina Perri. That song means a lot to me for various reasons. It was a song of the climax of the first novel I ever finished, and it just touches me very emotionally. I love that song, and I am not allowed to listen to it. If your name wasn't Max, what would it be? Love your vits, and I love you too. I know as a fact that my parents, had they not named me Max, they would have named me Beatriz, which is of course a Spanish version of Beatrice. I like to think that it would have been Beatrix. Then I would be able to keep the X in my name no matter what. But yeah, it would have been Beatrice. Isabella Ducette, it's fine, asks, what kind of things, music, video, vlogs, do you watch to get motivated to write? I listen to music. Music is a very integral part of my creative writing process, and I use it as a way to brainstorm and to imagine the characters and to get closer to the story. It's part of my daily walk. I don't do it every day, but when I do go out on a long walk, I put on music and I imagine the characters, whether it is recording a silly music video or imagining moments from the story. It really helps me get closer to the story, and imagining the characters makes them feel a lot more real. Alexander Sigsworth, longtime viewer, asks, for the story I'm currently writing, my tutor has directed me toward different research topics and sources in order to understand how characters might respond to the events of the narrative, to find information that could add to the world building and to gather more plot ideas based on themes. As a result, I have found that what I'm writing is more emotionally believable and with a more developed world. Have you ever been advised to do this or conduct an independent story research in this way? Not that I can think of. Outside of research, like, I need to know how things like these actually work, or how, let's say, for instance, one of my favorite things to re-research, because I forget it all the time, is how the military hierarchy works, or examples of military hierarchies. Because I forget how high level a lieutenant is compared to a captain or a colonel. I gotta remember that every time. As for research on how people react, it's interesting. That sounds like pretty interesting research. It's weird for me mostly because of my creative writing professor, who mostly just inspired us to just do writing. And it's been my experience to just let characters be characters and to not particularly question what they do. I'm not bashing, I'm just showing my point of view. It's mostly been my experience to just let the characters run loose. Do what they need to do, to not put words in their mouth and stuff like that. Just do what feels natural to them. As I've said in the past, like, this is like the most similar experience to doing something like doing a pen and paper role-playing campaign and playing as the game master. Your players are actual characters, and you have to let them be who they are, and you can't try to corral them. You have to go with the story that works for them. Anyhow, I haven't done research like that, but it sounds interesting. In my experience, it's mostly revolved around letting characters do what they want to do. Let them be themselves. Potato_Oni asks, Max, I have a few questions. Number 1. Do people sometimes guess your age wrong? I'm asking because I've realized people have had trouble determining mine. I myself have a difficult time guessing yours. I kind of have the feeling you're older than you look. I am 28. I don't look it, I think. People tell me that I don't look it, and I try not to behave like it. Or rather, I try not to follow on the stereotypical idea of being really bitter and jaded. I like to just kind of enjoy... count my blessings? That sounds like a bad thing to say. I am really grateful for what I have, the people in my life, and I acknowledge the mistakes I made in my... or the not-so-happy lessons that I learned along the way, and I strive to be better. I also I have a very specific kind of skin type. I have a very oily skin, which is a lot... It demands a lot of care, but also kind of exemplifies that I'm gonna look like this for a long time. It's one of those genetic things where I'm like, I have a really nice skin type, and I gotta take care of it. You gotta exfoliate, you gotta make sure that you use toner to take off the makeup, and you moisturize twice a day. Take care of this skin, and this face, because it's the only one I got, and I strive to take as much care of it as I can. Question number 2. What honorifics do you prefer, if any? I had to Google to double make sure what you meant, because I thought you meant like in a Japanese way, and I'm like, well, clearly, I gotta be your senpai, but no, that's silly. I think you meant gender pronouns, and my gender pronouns are they, them. I am non-binary. It's literally the first line in all of my descriptions, whether it is YouTube, Tumblr, or Twitter. I am non-binary, I identify as they, them. Oh, this is a good question, because there's literally a question similar to this one later on. Question number 3. How do you react when you realize that a story you wrote is practically identical to another one you have never even heard of before? Do you change yours? Hey, it's not practically identical. It's not even similar. We humans have a hidden power. You know how, like, in roleplay games, the humans are, like, the race that has no special abilities. They're the jack of all trades, the boring one. Humans have a special power. And I want a sci-fi setting when someone actually captures this. Humans have the amazing ability to find patterns where there are none. To squint our eyes and find similarities, a pattern of things that don't matter at all. Clichés are a part of this. They are meaningless patterns that we just examine and we kind of acknowledge as true. It's silly. When you look at a story, if you want to just break down a story into like its main elements, oh, this is a story about a young person who discovers they have a hidden power and descends into a magical world. That can be like all stories. Because when you squint your eyes hard enough, you can make anything whatever you want, because it becomes a blur of it. And when it comes to storytelling, you miss the biggest point. The actual act of telling the story. Because, and I feel like people miss this, and I feel like it's easier to miss it when it's not a particular... Okay, because that story idea that I proposed, the idea of a young person who discovers they have an innate ability and descend into a world of magic, is the subject of a bunch of stories. But let me tell you something right now, okay? What makes Harry Potter special is not the fact that that's the story idea. J.K. Rowling's prose is amazing. She weaves in characters and narrations and descriptions, and you can tell through the books how her writing improves and gets very, very, very good. She's also very good at interplaying characters. That's why I read a bunch of the Casual Vacancy, and you can just see it. She's so good at interweaving characters. It's not the story idea. It's never the story idea. It's always the storytelling that matters. And I know that you can be like, oh, but I was writing a story that was kind of similar to it. It's not similar. It's not similar. And if I must get super meta with you right now, I'm about to describe every single story that has existed, will ever exist. Are you ready? Something happens somewhere. That's every story that will ever exist. And I know someone out there is like, Max, that's needlessly reductive. Yeah. It's the whole exercise. We are being needlessly reductive. When you look at a story and you go, well, this is a fantasy story about an ancient treasure and a long lost evil that we all forgot and is now returned to ruin our lives. That can be a multitude of any stories. And at the end of the day, that's not what matters. Because it's never the idea that matters. It's the execution that matters. How you play it off that matters. It's the difference between the summary of a character in a play and the performance of that character in the same play. There's a world of difference there. It's not just the thing. It's the execution of the thing that matters. So to answer your question, do I change my stories? No, because I don't care, because my story is different, because I am writing the story. And honestly, let's be absolutely real with you. Whenever people do that, they're squinting their eyes and just looking at the big details, and especially they look at plot. They look at what happens in the story and not at the players and the characters. And that's like such a misjustice to your characters, who are literally the key players in the story. Their story is not about what happens, it's about what the characters make happen. But anyhow, I'm ranting. That's silly. Keep on writing, keep on telling your story. Doesn't matter. It's different, and yours is better, so keep going. Phil Provenzano asks, Max, will you continue the Sims Legacy Challenge? I kind of moved, well, I didn't move it. Like, I explained this a long time ago. But, the reason why I stopped doing Let's Plays, and that was like a year ago. I stopped doing Let's Plays on this channel. And there's, like, I don't want to say, there are rumors going about. Untruths, spoken about me. Now, I didn't move them because this is a writing channel. I had them before, and I had them for years. I didn't move them because I started Dango Duo with Kitty, where we've been doing lots of gameplay stuff. I stopped doing them, and there's a vlog, because I didn't have time. I literally didn't have time to do these videos, and do LP videos, Let's Play videos, and do Let's Play videos on my other channel with Kitty. And I realized, okay, and I realized at the beginning of last year, or at the beginning of this year, that I just wanted to get back into telling stories. And to get back into writing, because that's what I love the most. And I wanted to dedicate all of my time to that. So when I sorted out my priorities, I realized, okay, something's gotta give, and the LPs had to go. Is there a possibility of them coming back? I was thinking of maybe recording some for New Year's, but I just never got around to it, because busyness. If you're interested, if you miss when I used to do gameplay, or when I used to play stuff, check out Dango Duo, DANGO-DUO, it's my channel with Kitty. We have like 5 completed LPs over there. We got Paper Mario, we completed that, we did one playthrough of Amnesia Memories, that's a visual novel, we completed 999, we completed Life is Strange, we just finished Hatoful Boyfriend. We have a bunch of playthroughs there, and a bunch of one-shots. If you just want to see me play games with myself, I played a bunch of The Binding of Isaac, and right now there should be a whole mini-series of me playing Monster Hunter, the Monster Hunter World Beta. So, I recommend you go check out Dango Duo. Once again, that is Dango Duo, DANGO-DUO. It has a bunch of gameplay there. Will gameplay come back to this channel? I'm not sure. I don't see it in the foreseeable future, mostly because, again, time. And I think everyone is happier when I put out, and really, I'm the most happy, let's be real here. Let's not mince words, when I'm telling stories. And I really want to release more stories, especially in the year to come. And the final question of the day goes from Mikasius. I don't think I've ever commented on your videos before, but I've gotten back to watching them after a very long hiatus. I think the first time I found your videos, that was back when you were still playing the first season of the Walking Dead game. That was a long LP, or a long time ago. Fun fact, I did the season 2 of that on this channel with Kitty. So if you want to see the two of us being dorks, and her doing her favorite thing, which is we play a game where she knows everything and I know nothing. That was all Life is Strange, by the way. The whole time I'm like, oh no, what's happening? Also, by the time this goes up, we have started our Let's Play of Virtue's Last Reward, the sequel to 999, and it's great because the tables are turned. I know everything, and she knows nothing. She's so terrified. She's so terrified. Anyhow, but I love your work, and I find it very inspirational. My question: in the past, people were buried with the items they would need in the afterlife. Why would you want buried with you so you could use it in the afterlife? Also, have you ever had any ghost or paranormal experiences? What would I like buried with me? This is the most like sappy thing. I still have a plush that I got when I was first born. I still have it. He is actually like a year older than me. And if he's still around by the time I die, I would like to be buried with him. I think that would be really touching. Additional to that, and I know this may sound dumb, but like, can I get buried with like a PS4 just so that I have something to do? Because the afterlife sounds kind of like nothing happens for a long time. Also, like, people are like, you don't want like a notebook and a pen so you can keep writing? I'm sure there will be paper there, and I'm sure once I get on the other side, we'll figure out what needs to happen. But it's a kind of like a ceremonial thing. I would definitely like that plushie to be buried with me, no question. And as for the next question, have I ever had paranormal experiences? Not me. Plague My sibling has had like literally sees a picture and then goes like, what the hell is that, and then zooms in, that's a ghost. Stuff like that. The closest experience I ever had with paranormal was literally like experiencing or hearing stories about like duendes, which are the Spanish name for basically encompassing a bunch of supernatural creatures like fae. Fun fact, in Spanish the word duende is used to kind of encapsulate fairies, goblins, and elves. So there was the idea of like, I remember an aunt telling me that like to not go into that one house, that one abandoned house in the small town that my mom lived in, because it was full of duendes. And I remember like going in there, of course, because I went in there, and I remember like things felt really eerie, and I felt this presence that I never felt before, but it was probably me just being scared. Anyhow, we have way more of these to do, so you know what, I'm gonna call it nothing for tagging along. As always, thank you for your questions. I hope I gave you meaningful answers, and I will see you on the next one.